MSPs, summer is here, and so are vacation schedules, staffing gaps, and the challenge of keeping service levels high with fewer hands on deck. Join MSP industry thought leader Eric Simpson and Kaseya's Dan Tomaszewski for a live discussion on how successful MSPs are leveraging AI and automation to streamline operations, reduce manual work, and support more clients without continuously adding headcount. You'll discover practical use cases for AI-powered service desks, ticket triage, security operations, and faster issue resolution that can help your team work smarter while maintaining an exceptional client experience. Save your seat today at https://bit.ly/AI MSP webinar. That's https://bit.ly/AI MSP webinar, and learn how to run lean, stay profitable, and scale support this summer. And now, on to the show. And 3, 2, 1, blast off. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the MSP Chat Podcast, your weekly visit with two talking heads talking with you about the services, strategies, and success tips you need to make it big in managed services. My name is Rich Freeman. I am Chief Analyst at Channel Master, the organization responsible for this show. I am joined, as I am every week, by your other co-host, who also happens to be our CEO and Chief Strategist at Channel Master. His name is Eric Simpson. Eric, how are you?
I'm doing well, Rich. How are you? You're celebrating a win recently for your ball club. They beat the Angels the other day, and that series is going on strong.
So the game you're referring to was Monday. I believe the Mariners won last night as well. But the Monday game was special, folks, because for various reasons, Eric's wife and his two sons and their girlfriend, they were all going to that game too. And I just happened to have tickets. And so we got together for a beer beforehand. And then I got to watch my home team win, and they got to watch their home team lose. So the evening ended better for me than it did for them. But it was a very nice evening, just the same.
Yeah, beautiful. And what surprised me was I was getting pictures sent and saying, look, it's 8 p.m. right here. And it was like bright daylight. And here it was, in Southern California, it's complete darkness, right? So that's pretty wild.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, obviously we're further north here in Seattle. I've always wondered how much difference does that make? And there you go. That's striking, because it was still daylight when I left that game.
Yeah. Well, we're thick-skinned. We Angels fans. We've had to build that resilience of not being to a championship in over 2 decades. We won the World Series. I think it was in 1980 or something. It was that long ago. So anyway, hope still burns strong in true Angels fans. I was also surprised at how many Angels fans there were at the game, because I was watching it at home, and there were tons of Angel fans dressed up and representing at the Mariners Stadium.
I go to about 8 games a season, and pretty much every game I go to, there is good representation from out of towners, and that's partly, I guess, because Seattle is a tourist destination. So I'm going to be in town anyway. I'll go watch a baseball game.
Absolutely. All righty. Well, now let's get down to business, Rich. It's time to kick off this session. Yeah.
Let's get into our story of the week, Eric. And this comes out of a conversation I had last week. Regular listeners, watchers know I was at Roost's conference in Nashville last week. While I was there, I met with the CEO and president of Enable, John Pagliuca, and their chief innovation officer, Robert Johnston. And we spoke about a new release from Enable called their Shadow AI visibility tool. Didn't get a lot of fanfare for some reason or other in the media. But before I talk about what it is and why they've introduced it and why they think it is differentiated from the competition, let me just give you a few numbers. You know how I like my numbers, Eric. Researchers from The Economist recently published some data. 98% of organizations have experienced a disruptive agent-related incident of some kind already in the last year. 2/3 of the organizations The Economist polled lack full visibility into their AI agents. So having trouble to some scale, don't even really know how many agents they have, what they're doing, who's running them, etc. Here's some new data from AvePoint. Just came out within the last day or two as we're recording this here. Approximately 20% of organizations they polled don't know whether employees are using unsanctioned AI tools or not. So they don't know if there's shadow AI happening within the organization or not. Spoiler alert, there is. Um, the number goes up. It's 21.1% don't feel like they know what's happening. Are there shadow agents at work there? The number for Gen AI is actually 17.6, a little lower than 20%, but that's up from 6.3%. So organizations are less confident about their visibility into what kind of shadow AI usage is happening within the organization. And then last but not least, Eric, this is my favorite. This comes from a company called Neon Cyber. 63% of survey, and I'm quoting you this because it needs to be understood verbatim to just soak up the goodness here. 63% of survey respondents reported having a clear AI policy that they understood. However, of that 63%, nearly 50% knowingly violated it by using unapproved AI tools anyway. And there's no visibility at management, so management doesn't know what I'm doing here. There's a policy, I've read it, I understood it, and I'm ignoring it because I like this tool and it's unapproved. And management really can't do anything about it because they don't know that I'm using this unapproved tool. So that obviously is the setup for why MSPs need a tool like the Shadow AI visibility solution that Enable has rolled out. Keyword in there in that name is visibility. This is an observability tool right now. So it will go out and it will let you know, it will inventory all the Shadow AI tools that are in use in an end user organization right now. For now, it's not going to do anything about that. So you as an MSP, you're going to have visibility into what's out there. And then you're going to need to have a conversation with the customer about what to do about that. And Enable has a pretty strong point of view, basically. Even if we gave an MSP the ability to just shut down those unapproved tools, they don't actually think that's a smart business policy for MSPs right now because the people using these tools are probably using them productively. So you don't just kind of want to shut it off. What you want to do is work with the customer to enable safe usage of these tools and train people who maybe think they can only get a job done on this unapproved model. So it becomes a consulting opportunity, and that's an important part of the message Enable is putting out there right now, which is if you are an MSP looking for a way in, an AI service that you can add to your service roster right now, a good starting point. We've talked about how many MSPs are looking for that. Inventory shadow AI, just like you used to do vulnerability scanning for current and potential customers before. Now you're going to do shadow AI scanning. Go in, talk to the customer about the best steps forward to enable responsible, safe use of AI inside the organization. That's going to produce project work. And then on an ongoing basis, you're going to continuously monitor shadow AI usage, compliance with the policy, et cetera. So project revenue followed by recurring revenue. At some point down the road, Adlumin, the NDR XDR solution Enable makes, will have the ability to enforce the policies. TBD on the timing for that. But for right now, it's a visibility tool that creates an AI opportunity for MSPs. Now, obviously, Eric, we're familiar with a number of different tools, standalone tools from startups that do similar things, except they do go beyond observability into enforcement and guardrails and that kind of a thing. Enable will tell you if you are using our RMM, they call them UEM, Unified Endpoint Management Tools. If you're using our MDR, XDR solution, Adlumin, getting that all on one pane of glass, native integration, there are efficiency benefits to the MSP in doing that. And obviously, that is a point of view shared by companies like ConnectWise and Kaseya that have a fuller suite of products out there. That's the Enable point of view. But I think for our audience today, Eric, the key message is the numbers I shared before make clear your customers really need help with this issue to a degree they don't know. This is a value-added AI service that you can offer will produce short-term and long-term revenue, and there are tools from your existing and potentially from new vendors out there that can help you do that.
Well, you had me, Rich, at 98% reported agent-related disruption. I mean, can you unpack that a little more? Is that just like anything that has caused some sort of because to me, a disruption is kind of a business interruption. Like I'm stopping what I'm doing to go deal with this problem, whatever that problem is. I mean, that seems insane to me. Like almost 100% of the folks, that were polled said, oh, yes, we've had agent related disruption.
Yeah, and I don't have a breakdown of the specific kinds of disruption, and I don't think they're talking about the kind of disruption that shuts down the business. It's the kind of disruption basically where the agent did something suboptimal, something that you didn't instruct it to do, may or may not be calamitous, but to put it in your words, it's something that you have to stop what you were doing and deal with, even if it's only for a few minutes.
Right. And that's why I framed it that way, because obviously it's, if it was a business continuity that affects the business, we'd hear it a lot more about it. But that in and of itself, when you compare it against what people are saying, oh, well, it helps me improve my efficiency and productivity this much, you got to weigh those two things. It's like, well, what's the true cost here, as well as token burn and the other things that we've been talking about. But yes, we have spoken about other solutions that are standalone. There's opportunity, right? Where there's a need, there's opportunity. So we're seeing this happening in the channel, where we're seeing other folks coming in and saying, we have a solution that not only will help you assess and identify, but then create these guardrails and help control. What I really like about um, Enable's position was that statement about, or that position regarding, well, don't just shut it off, like, assess everything. And then to me, as a former MSP, that's an opportunity for me to put on my VCAIO hat, my consultative hat, get that conversation in the boardroom and say, okay, look, here's what we're seeing across the environment here. These are all the tools, the shadow AI tools, and these are the things that people are using. So let's have a conversation about that and identify, should we implement a policy? And that other component was, yeah, the majority of these folks, whatever the number of 60 some percent, said that there is a policy, but I am violating it, right, on purpose, because I need to use my tools. I made a comment, I think, on our last podcast, Rich, and I said, I'm now in the camp of one of those people that says I cannot live without AI. But, with great power comes great responsibility, right? So having that conversation, and then there's a policy, yet there's no accountability, there's no ability to measure, hence there's lack of potential enforcement of the policy, right? So this is a big conversation that can be had in a very strategic manner with clients to prove your value, moving into kind of that next phase of just a value that we're delivering to our clients. We're talking a lot about getting out of kind of the commodity conversations and things like that. Of course, we handle, infrastructure management and security and help desk for users. But here's something that we need to map that is much more strategic to your business, that can align with your growth goals, and then build that into road mapping and ongoing consultative services. And really the idea that we've been talking about a lot on the podcast, Rich, around monetizing AI, right? And we've heard all kinds of different ideas and ways to monetize it, per agent, per workflow, per outcome, on top of some additional percentage on top of token usage and all these things. But to me, that's kind of the transactional stuff, when we can say, well, we're going to the real services attached that we want to apply on top of maybe the way we're generally monetizing some of the work we're doing in AI, should be those additional consultative services, like you mentioned. Now I'm in the boardroom. Now I'm being more strategic. Now for every dollar of that I'm realizing from my base AI management, auditing, assessing, and then identifying, I want $6, $7, $8 worth of additional consultative services attached. So it's that ongoing strategy building, and then interviewing different business unit leaders and identifying what it is that they're doing in their workflow. And then for the folks that are using AI, sitting down and having conversations with them. Hey, how are you using AI? What is it you're trying to get out of it? Maybe we can help. Right. So being additive with kind of that security mindset that says, okay, here's what your users are trying to achieve with these AI tools. Here's a way that we can support it safely and securely so we don't have agent related disruption or data leakage and things like that. So these are the things that I'm thinking about now.
No, and you make a good and an important point. We're talking nominally about a tool, Shadow AI Visibility from Enable, but this isn't and shouldn't be a tool conversation. It isn't between us here, and it shouldn't be between the MSP and their customer, a tool conversation. It should be a strategic conversation. And you're absolutely right. We reiterate this regularly, that it's more important than ever, specifically, especially in the context of AI, for MSPs to have consultative relationships with their customers. And this is an opportunity to have a consultative strategic conversation with the customer about an issue with real security implications inside the business. And then you can kind of guide them as the VCAIO to a better, safer, more productive future. So it is a revenue opportunity. It's a stickiness opportunity. It's an opportunity to shift the dialogue with the customer more in the direction of strategy, away from the transactional, and that is all good stuff. Now,
Mm.
speaking of good stuff, Eric, I'm sure you are aware, we are recording this here on July 1st, which means welcome to the second half of the year. And just naturally, you start looking ahead to the future, and nobody wants to be surprised by what the future holds. And I think that has something to do with your tip of the week.
Nice setup, Rich. Thank you. Yes, and yes, we are in a new quarter now, right? So we are now in Q3 of 2026. And so for our MSP listeners out there, what is your strategy to make sure that every meeting that you're having with your existing clients provides value beyond kind of, here's my report card, mom and dad, I got a B plus, right? So we're talking about, you know, and I continually want to remind MSPs that, yes, strategic business reviews are the gateway to building and strengthening your credibility, your value, and helping guide your clients' budgets and use of technology and doing the things that you recommend that they do. But it is difficult to have a quarterly business review with every single one of your clients. So I don't want to so much turn this into a QBR conversation as more of a technology and AI road mapping conversation for MSPs, right? Because sometimes there is a service or solution that rises above and beyond, just waiting till we have our next QBR. And you're not going to have QBRs with every one of your clients. I assume that many MSPs out there kind of do what we ended up doing when we were mature enough to really figure out how to meet the needs of our most important clients, and then our growing clients, and then the clients that just really didn't have any kind of growth strategy or budget and things like that. The clients that were flat year over year, never consumed more services from us. We kind of did a strategic business review as needed with those folks, but kind of those are the C customers in that pyramid of ABC I talk about, Rich. So the tippy top, the section of pyramid into three sections, right? The tippy top, smallest little tiny pyramid on top are the A's, the fat metal is the B's, and the big base at the bottom is typically C's. And what we're trying to do is trying to move more into B and A clients over time, right? And so the B clients, you're maybe meeting with them again, depending upon their growth strategy and their budget, maybe twice a year, maybe once a year, who knows? But your A clients, sometimes we met with our A clients, Rich, like weekly. They were growing so fast, they were doing things so quickly. Some we were meeting with monthly, some quarterly, right? And then beyond that, there were kind of the B clients and things like that. So if we're talking about AI and we see this as a risk, because it is a big risk, especially, with this new reporting that you just shared with us, Rich. What's happening in our client environments may not wait for a QBR. So this is a meeting that we want to have maybe in between the next QBR, and set a meeting with clients and saying, hey, we're helping our clients move into utilizing AI safely and effectively and productively. And we just want to have a quick chat to understand what your position is and help identify what AI is already being used. And sometimes, Rich, the business leaders are the ones using AI, right? Like they're using it, and it's always, it's also funny when we do these surveys and things like that. Like, who are the folks that kind of fall prey to some of these phishing attacks and email, threats? And it's typically, well, I won't say typically, but a lot of the times it's the business leaders, right, that are doing these kinds of things. Anyway, comment below and let us know if that's what you're seeing as well, audience. So every client needs to know where your relationship is going with them, right? Because if you're just kind of, it's the same thing every quarter, it's the same thing year over year, you're putting yourself at risk in that relationship, because somebody may come knocking on the door, as happens, and says, hey, what are you doing about AI? And now we know that folks like Anthropic and others are going to be, knocking on your clients' doors about AI and things like that. So if you're really building a strategic partnership, a business partnership, rather than, your technology advisor or your trusted advisor, like, clients want, they trust about 7 people, right? According to Jay McBain, there's 7 people that are in the circle of trust, and, your technology organization should be one of them, but you have to earn that trust, and you have to be in lockstep with what that business owner's vision is for growth and their strategy, and support it and put the guardrails around it so you can help them achieve it in a safe and productive manner, leveraging technology. It's not a tool conversation, like you said, Rich. It's not a service conversation. It's a strategy conversation. So every client should know what's in their roadmaps, and you're doing a 12-month roadmap. You're doing the basic things, the license management, the asset management, and you're replacing equipment and things like that. That's expected. That's like getting your oil changed in your car. But what are you doing to improve the performance of that vehicle? That's what this conversation is about. So 3 things you can do today as you're having conversations with clients, leading with AI and security. We're seeing a lot of partners, Rich, being much more successful and finally getting the security solutions in place because their clients want AI. So this is a conversation that says we can lead with AI, but we're going to pull through our security to support that AI conversation. And when we're having these meetings with clients, it's all about prioritizing, identifying your top client accounts, identifying and scoring them. Like, who are the folks that are most apt to take a meeting with us that turns into our ability to do an AI assessment, according to today's conversation. Let's stay with that. An AI assessment, identify shadow IT, and then present a process, a service offering that you've created that says, we're going to assess the shadow IT. We're going to meet with everybody using shadow IT. We're going to understand what they're trying to do with it. We're going to identify the risks, and then we're going to put a proposal together to help them utilize AI safely and reduce the risk by enforcing policy. But we have to know what they're using, and we have to be able to measure it, where we do need a tool, but we're not pitching the tool. So review the top client accounts, have meetings with the first set, the next set, etc. Discuss those next priorities now. If it's not an AI conversation, you can skew a little bit outside of it. If you haven't had a QBR with a client in a while, Rich, this might be a way for you to kind of expand the conversation a little bit. But ideally, it's more of an AI conversation, because we sense, statistics tell us, that the majority of SMBs out there are leveraging AI. And if the leadership doesn't know it, it's because the users aren't telling them, right? Because they're trying to stay outside. They're trying to stay out of trouble. And then connect every one of those recommendations for each user or business unit that's using AI to a business outcome, right? So we're not just coming in and selling, we're going to a project, but we're selling a business outcome. So don't tie it into, oh, once we're done, like I used to, right, in the early days, once we're done, all your users will be able to, send and receive mail safely because we put antivirus in. That's not it. All of your users should be more efficient and productive because we're helping them utilize AI properly. We're building potentially agents and workflows, and helping them maybe orchestrate, like crawl, walk, run, so over time, as you're building this 12-month visionary roadmap for everything that they're doing, you have a roadmap for AI. So here's what the first 90 days looks like. Here's what the next 90 days look like, all the way through the year. So the client knows where you're going next, and you have that buy-in, and it creates a tremendous amount of stickiness and loyalty and referral opportunities because you're actually helping that business achieve its business outcomes, not simply paying bills for technology support.
Surprises can be fun, Eric, but in the business context, they quite often aren't. And the worst kind of surprises are AI and security surprises. Ask the 98% of organizations that have had an agent-related disruption. Not a pleasant surprise. So, yeah, absolutely. Getting out in front of both AI and security requirements in terms of the good that AI, the power AI can bring to a business, but also to kind of head off the dangers from a security perspective it can pose. This is going to be the kind of stuff that creates opportunity for you, builds loyalty for you, creates opportunity for the customer as well. The other surprise you want to avoid, though, as an MSP, is the surprise that comes when you discover that your customer is talking to somebody else about AI and security. And I know just from conversations with MSPs that I've written about in my blog, Channel Hall, just within the last few weeks, that there's a lot of incoming traffic to MSPs right now from SMBs who really want to have a serious conversation about AI and agents and getting real productivity boosting impact out of those. And so if there is that kind of interest and demand out there, if it is expanding, as anecdotally and quantitatively, I know it is right now. That means you really need to be having that conversation and building that roadmap with your customers right now before somebody else gets in there to do that, which would be a really ugly surprise.
Absolutely right, Rich. And that's letting the wolf in the hen house, as the adage goes. And the other thing about creating this roadmap also is giving the client getting their buy-in for budgeting over time, right? We're not asking for an emergency fund to fix something that's broken. We're saying, hey, these are risks, let's be strategic about this, and let's break it out. That's why I kind of mentioned that 90-day kind of sprint over time. It's like the first 90 days, here's what we're going to do, here's kind of the budget that we're going to need, here's the next 90 days, probably in this range, but it'll depend on what findings result from this first 90 days, right? And each one of those conversations then helps de-risk the next budget request and justify the next budget request, right? So the client sees where we're going. This is the objective that I've shared with my MSP. This is what they're helping me achieve, and this is how we're going to eat that elephant in bite-sized chunks so I can start planning ahead to budget. And when you have a plan like that that's already been conceptually agreed to your point, Rich, along with phasing and budget, it's going to be really hard for somebody else to come knock on the door and kind of insert themselves into that conversation and try to displace you.
Okay, well, Enable is getting deeper into AI. We know that just within the last couple of months, Kaseya and ConnectWise have both had major AI-related announcements. But you'll have trouble finding anyone who is more immersed in the productivity potential of AI for MSPs than somebody running an AI native startup that does exactly that. And so our next guest actually is exactly such a person. His name is James Farrow. He's the CEO and co-founder of a company called Cyft, CYFT. This is a service desk automation, but beyond kind of tool. for MSPs, and we're going to get his perspective on the opportunity for MSPs out there with AI. Coming your way right after the break, folks. So stick around. We will be right back. And welcome back to part 2 of this episode of the MSP Chat podcast, where we are extremely pleased to be joined by the founder and CEO of Cyft. That is CYFT, an organization I have written about multiple times on my blog, Channel Hawk, and it is great to have him on the show. His name is James Farrow. James, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Rich. And nice to see you, Eric.
Likewise.
Appreciate it.
So, like I said, I've covered Cyft. We've spoken in the past, but there are going to be some people in the audience here who are new to you and new to the company. So, just to kick things off, tell them a little bit about who you are and what Cyft is all about.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I am just a dude trying to figure it out like everybody else. But I'm able to spend a lot more time doing it, right? I'm not running an entire MSP. This is everything that I do all day long. I mean, it's like I probably have bags under my eyes. I mean, it's 14, 15 hours a day, running the business by day, and then learning and growing and doing engineering at night. So I've spent a lot of time just with artificial intelligence, with LLMs, just spending time building with them, manipulating them, getting them to do unique things. And I think that's kind of what I can bring to the table today is everything that I've learned through trial and error, through hundreds and hundreds of hours, as well as what our customers are doing with our product Cyft.
And just so folks understand, so what your customers are doing with Cyft right now, and we'll talk a little bit in the context of where you see AI tooling for MSPs going. Right now, the Cyft platform is helping them with documentation. It's basically listening in on every technician interaction with the end user, and then instead of the technician having to capture all of that detail and documentation, Cyft is doing all that for them. And then building up a store of data along the way that will have some useful applications later on. But that's a pretty good summary of where you are right here and now, James.
It's pretty great. In a nutshell, we solve garbage in, garbage out. We sit on the technician's machine. We hear everything. It doesn't get translated through a human. We let machines talk to machines, which means you get very high fidelity signal into your system of record. And then we query that for you using natural language. So you can ask it really anything that you want. For the first time in history, you can actually get what you want out of ConnectWise Manage just using natural language. So it's really garbage in, garbage out. And we do have big plans for what we want to do and things like that. But like at its core, like that's a huge problem, especially when we're gearing up for an automated future where, I'd say we're in the first third of it, and you need clean data. You need to be able to query that data, and Cyft just makes that so easy, and it makes it really easy for the technicians to do all their documentation, and it's so much better than if they did it themselves. So the business is pumped because they're getting time entries on time, and they're getting internal notes and resolution flags. Everything looks really pretty, and every tech, every ticket, every time is very consistent. And so, I mean, it's kind of a boring problem to solve, but I think it's the root problem that is super important for MSPs to be taking a look at.
So the solution we've been talking about here has been GA for just a few months at this point. So you're in the process now of talking regularly with MSPs about what you do and about what AI can do for an MSP, which puts you in a great position to kind of give us a lay of the land on AI-based automation among MSPs right now. To what extent, and I'm asking you to generalize a little bit here. To what extent, in your experience, are MSPs kind of hungry for the sort of thing that a company like Cyft does and looking for help and guidance? Or to what extent are you kind of evangelizing what AI can do for an MSP? And are there any patterns that sort of separate the early adopters from the companies that are maybe skeptical or laggards?
That's a great question. I would break it up into a few different groups. You got the folks who are like, what are you doing with my data? Very security conscious, right? They're thinking about compliance and they're approaching it with that level of cautiousness. I applaud those people. I think that's super important. Then you got the DIY folks. I've got MCPs. They're all plugged into Cloud Code and they're accessing my actual environment. Now, if you're able to lock it down, you've spent the time to do it correctly. That's awesome. I met with a really, really talented MSP team, and they built basically Cyft internally for themselves. Now, it cost them 2 engineers and $500,000, and they still have to maintain it forward. But they were able to accomplish some of, if not all of what we did, but more tailored for themselves, which was really fascinating. They were an outlier. Usually it's, well, I have a MCP to connect wise, and I can do read write through Claude Code. And that's kind of that bucket of DIY. And then I see the folks who are hungry for it and confused by what Cyft does or Thread does or Pia or Zofik, and the market isn't really sure. Do I need all of these? Do I need one of them? How do they talk to each other? Do they integrate? Do they work together? Nikhil at Neo Agents, shout him out too. So there's that bucket. And then you've got the just like perfect fit for Cyft, which is I need AI. I'm not going to build it myself. And I understand that the data really is the first step that I should be taking. Is getting really good, clean data. Before I start automating all this stuff, before I start putting agents in, let me get high fidelity signal from actual interactions into my PSA. That's the bucket that we play really well in. And that breaks down into large organizations with 200 plus technicians, all the way down to the 3-person team. And we cover all of those bases. The product is a really great fit for all of them.
So, James, we know that there's a lot of, I will say promotion / noise in the channel from everybody and their grandma about, the AI and the value of AI to MSPs, to their customers and things like that. It's creating a lot of confusion, right? So what would you say to MSPs that are interested, but haven't really figured out how to take advantage of it? They haven't yet adopted a solution. You mentioned the first step is kind of getting that signal clarity and purity. What kind of, how would they do that? What kind of barriers should they expect to encounter? And what would you guide them to do to overcome those barriers, in this, like in a first step kind of a process?
If I were an MSP, I would find a small subset of my team and dedicate them to trialing multiple different products. I wouldn't be thinking about mass rollouts. I wouldn't be thinking about multi-year agreements. I would be thinking about a dedicated team, people that I know can handle the added bandwidth of learning a new tool, maybe as long as they're excited by it. And I'd be trialing products right now in isolation, probably not even on my production environment, on testing, staging instances, and having people try to break them, test them, and give feedback to founders like me. That is exactly what I would be doing. I wouldn't feel behind because I haven't had this massive AI rollout. I think it's really early. I think the founders like myself, the founders like Nikhil, like Pinar at Lexful, we are still figuring it out. The founders like Sam Altman, right? Those guys are still figuring it out. So I would encourage people to not feel like you're behind. The only way you're behind is if you're not exploring. And you don't have to buy products. You don't have to implement them and roll them out and do all that sort of stuff in order to explore. But I do encourage them to explore and to give feedback to founders like me so that we can have a really awesome future as we continue building. That's what I would recommend.
The thought that came into my mind as I'm listening to you kind of describe, your guidance to MSPs is, so you're asking the MSPs to kind of Lewis and Clark it a little bit, right? You're Lewis and Clarking your way through AI because you got, assign a team, you kind of give them the destination and you're like, figure it out along the way.
And don't feel like you're behind right now. We are in an echo chamber on LinkedIn, all these sorts of things. You're not behind if you aren't implementing AI today. You will feel behind if you go on LinkedIn and you see, all these posts and stuff like that. I'm going to be one of them that's posting and saying AI is the best thing in the world, of course. But you should be strongly considering trials with companies, looking at it as development partnerships, things like that, understanding these aren't going to work perfectly. But that would be my recommendation. If we can get more MSPs on that kind of train of thinking, where it's not, I need to roll this whole thing out and I'm, in such a rush to do it and I need to find the next thing and which company, how do these all work together? It's like we could just slow down and just work together as founders in the community and build something people actually want, that's safe to use, that technicians love, that actually helps the business. That's what we want. And we don't need to be in a rush to do that.
It's probably worth pointing out when you were talking about Pinar, that's Pinar Ormagy from Lexville. She's actually been on the show before too. Now I'm thinking fair is fair. I've got to get Nikhil on the show
Yeah, I was
to
just
round out the trio.
We need a panel now. We need a panel for one of
Yeah,
the shows. Let's
Yeah.
get everybody on.
yeah.
Wait.
Maybe we need to do that down the road.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really wanted to get into with you, and I was kind of hinting a little bit at the fact that you're automating, like you said, this big pain point, around data and data cleanliness and documentation. So, like, what you're doing right now is actually very valuable for MSPs. But, there are documentation solutions, there's service desk automation. Part of what I'm interested in is what comes after that. If that we're in early innings, that's where MSPs can get started. As you look down the road a little bit, because this is something you're thinking about to a much greater degree than most MSPs are, than Eric and I are. Where do you see AI powered automation for MSPs kind of going over the course of the next, let's say, 2-3 years?
I'm going to give you my best guess. And 2 or 3 years from now, if this clip surfaces, I'm probably going to be way wrong. But I think automation and agentic orchestration and really agent runtime in general is going to get commoditized. I think it's going to get easier and easier for MSPs to deploy it inside their own environments, which is going to set up a future where they're now really thinking about how they can deploy it in their customer environments. Now, the reason why I think there's going to be a huge shift in the MSP business model isn't the AI itself. It's risk and liability. So when an end client, a 50-person law firm, wants to implement AI, that's a ton of risk to take on for themselves. If they have an AI that goes rogue and does something that hurts a client and they get sued, that might collapse their entire business. So, just like cybersecurity, they're going to need to pass that risk to a third party. I believe the MSPs are perfectly positioned to take on and absorb that risk. It's going to change the underlying unit economics of an MSP. We're talking about 70, 80% margins on that, where the MSP is actually implementing the AI in the end client's environment with the caveat of, I will absorb the risk. Now, if the MSPs are going to be able to do that, they need verified work attestation, essentially. So, did my technician do the right thing? Can I trace back this agent action all the way to a human decision that was made on my service desk based on our run book? If you have that pathway, that audit trail all the way back, then the insurance carriers can underwrite that risk for the MSP. So now we have this really awesome 3-layer sort of AI liability and risk chain that is finally connected. The insurance carriers can't underwrite something that they can't prove and can't see evidence for. The MSPs absolutely can't do that themselves right now. So they're going to need someone that's able to do that. And then if the end clients want to deliver AI, they're going to need to pass that risk somewhere. So I think that's really what the next maybe 4 to 7 years is going to move towards. We're going to see more outcome-based billing for the first time. The only reason that will exist is because you can verify the work. So I really think it's going to be about mirroring the human and machine decision-making in a way that we can prove. And if we can prove it, we can underwrite it. If we can underwrite it, everybody's happy because there's multiple throats to choke. And so you can do what you need to do as an end client.
I'll just jump in real quickly here, Eric, if that's okay, because that was so first of all, very, very interesting answer. And it calls two things to mind for me. So I wrote a post in Channelholic a few months ago about, the SaaS apocalypse fears and what's going to, and I was writing more about vendors, but like what's going to save vendors from an end user or an MSP just doing everything through the LLM. What are they going to? And I identified a few factors that are going to be an answer. That one of which was risk, and it's exactly what you were talking about there, where maybe you can do it just you and Claude, but that's going to involve absorbing a lot of risk, and people are not going to want to do so. Getting close to risk, I forget who it was who came up with this phrase, but embracing risk is actually a good thing for vendors and for MSPs as well. And then the other thing I'll just quickly say is, like, just an hour ago, I was interviewing the founder of a company called Gentic Flow, and he was talking to me about the proof layer that he's building into this. And you've just clarified for me to a greater extent than I gave him time to why he's doing that and why it's so important. And it's like, okay, got it. Now I understand. So interesting.
Yeah.
Jim.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really important. I hope that Cyft can be a part of that solution for sure.
Yeah, I also want to follow up on your answer because so much came out of that response. And this is what's great about Rich and I. We kind of sit on kind of a couple of different sides of the channel from our thinking perspective. And the things that I want to highlight were, number one, it sounds like you solved the how do I monetize AI problem for MSPs. It's like they're trying to figure out how to package and do it. They're not ready yet for their customers because they still got to figure it out for themselves. But what you just described, it feels like a very natural pathway now, MSPs, to now monetize and take that de-risk AI for their clients. I like that a lot, James. The second thing that struck me was, this idea that insurance carriers now can insure that risk. And what struck me was that pathway is already laid now for MSPs and vendors. There are vendors out there that say, if you sell our stack, we've already partnered with such and such insurance company. That stack now is insured, and you can go and warranty your services basically for that customer. So there is already a pathway now. It seems to me that it would make it easier for them to see AI and this opportunity to say, oh, if you're doing it this way and you're using these best practices and these platforms, then yes, we will give you more favorable rates because it is proven and you can demonstrate that through the output. So
Exactly.
I just wanted to highlight those two things.
Yep, it's exactly right. Outcome-based billing, and then AI liability and risk absorption. Those are the two things that'll change, I think.
No, appreciate that. Sorry, didn't mean to step on you. So I'm going to ask you a Star Trek related question now, because in Star Trek, at least the version, when I was growing up, it was the original series, right? And the thing that was most amazing to everybody watching that show was people were talking to the computer and say, computer, do this or that. And the computer would respond, blah, blah, blah. Do you see MSPs like the next evolution of AI, of them to get away from having to, chatbot this thing to death and just be able to have a natural language conversation? I think we're seeing early kind of signs of that, but it's pretty rudimentary now. But do you see the ability for AI now to not only, support documenting and demonstrating, activity and workflows and things like that, in helping solve some of these level 1, level 2 kind of services, but taking more action and then just being more of a conversation like we're having with, I don't want to say the names of these AIs that are in everybody's houses because mine will start talking to me right now, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But is that kind of what you anticipate? Is it being more of a natural conversation that we can have? And, by the way, I've got my phone and I'm in the car and I can start working on somebody's issues, right? Just by talking to my AI and having it, solve issues for us. What are your thoughts?
Big question.
Or is it way beyond that?
Well, there's kind of two parts in there. There's like, how are we going to communicate with machines? And then there's the where are we at with the action layer, I'll say. And then maybe how do those two things work together? So I'll try to answer that in a cohesive way. The first part on communication, I don't think chat goes away. That would be like Microsoft Teams chat going away or Slack. Like we love chat. We chat all the time. It's just a faster way to write a letter like we, did hundreds of years ago. Right? Written communication is always going to be a first class experience. People want chat to go away. They don't. If you just take chat away, it sucks. Chat's actually great. Maybe that's controversial in 2026, but I think chat's here to stay. Why would it not be? It's just such a quick way to send a message to someone. It's just written communication.
Mm.
I think it's going to be an and, right? Like you have chat and you can dictate right into it. Now, I don't even think that has to be conversational, right? I think just the ability to chat and or dictate and have it go to text and put that in, it's just faster than typing. I think people care about speed. Um, I don't know that we'll get to a like two-way sort of conversational back and forth. We can do it. I mean, I do it every day. I have built a bunch of voice bots and things like that. But it's actually so much easier to just read. And like if we think about human communication, like our comprehension is much higher when we read, and our ability to communicate is much better when we talk. And so voice in, text out, I think is going to be the first class workflow. Now you'll still have and, right? So it's just going to be multimodal. So you can chat, you can dictate, you can do conversation mode. All those things will be available. But I don't think any single one of them just goes away over time. So that was the first part on just like communication. Then this second thing is on the action layer. I think we're racing to try to do something that we don't fully understand yet, which is how do I automate all of these things that I don't even know how my people are already doing for the most part? And if I already know how my people are doing them and they're documented, why would I not just use RPA? Like, what is the value of agentic orchestration today for an MSP? Like today's version? I don't think there really is because we don't understand the workflows well enough yet for the things that we would actually utilize it for. Now I can give you examples of things that we're discussing at Cyft that might be helpful, like batch ticket processing after hours, right? Using LLMs to go back and look at your last 6 months of tickets and, fix those. Hey, maybe you're moving to true methods or you want everything to be C level. Like you can go retroactively clean things up and use reasoning to look at the problem and recategorize it so you have cleaner data historically. Things like that, right? Those are like very tight use cases for agentic orchestration. I don't see this whole action layer of like agents doing a ton of this stuff today. Because if I'm an MSP, I'm probably just going to use RPA for that thing because I want it to happen the same way every time until I have an agent that's just like so good that I don't need it to. But I think there's a big gap between can it do something really, really simple most of the time and I'm actually using agents to like solve problems that are novel. So I think we're farther away from that than maybe we think, even though the technology's there. I don't think the workflows and the understanding and the real world chaotic service desk is ready for an agent to just start doing things. And when you get Nikhil on here, he'll have a totally different opinion that's probably even more informed than mine. But that's just how I feel about it today. I think we're a little ways off.
Interesting. Um, so what you guys have built and are continuing to build is a system of action. You kind of referred to how you connect with an MSP system of record right now. Now, I recently wrote a piece about how Enable has rolled out an MCP server so that systems of action like Cyft can connect to that back end. And I saw you on LinkedIn thanking them for the vision to make that possible. For vendors who want to do it and MSPs who want to take advantage of that. As you look down the road 2-3 years, and I'm not trying to set you up with a loaded question here, I'm just really kind of curious, as you think about the Enables and the Kaseyas and the ConnectWises of the world, is their long-term role in the tool stack and the ecosystem to be the sort of back-end system of record for systems of action like Cyft's to interact with, and they'll be a little disintermediated from the MSP, or do you see that because they're obviously building their own system of action functionality or acquiring it? Do you see them playing a combination of roles? how do you see the future playing out for those guys?
I've got a lot of money, so it's tough to count them out in any sort of significant way. I think their products as they exist today are going to have to change dramatically. That's probably going to happen through acquisition or through like micro acquisition, like acquihires. Bringing on a team like Mark and myself into an organization like Kaseya and saying, "You guys just do like research and development, and the cool things that you guys build and test with beta customers will port into our product." Like if I was the CEO of Kaseya, that would be how I would be thinking about it. Like, who's doing cool stuff, and let me like acquihire that and leave them alone and just keep doing cool stuff because it's moving so fast. Like, I just want people working on that internally. Maybe you hire that, and I don't know. But I would be thinking really about talent acquisition and more than like the product landscape today. If I was those companies, um, there you almost got to just start fresh. Like you have your system of record, but like you got to be thinking about what's our next product. Like if I'm ConnectWise, Cyft is ConnectWise only right now, right? When we have the internal integrations for Halo and Autotask. So we can roll those out. But if I'm ConnectWise, I'm looking at a Cyft and going, how can I help Cyft win? Because they're making my product more valuable. Like, how can I be a part of that? Like that would be how I'm thinking about it. And I just don't think vendors who are, that large really even have that level of bandwidth. They're just very, very, there's a huge mountain of, red tape and junk that they have to be working on and thinking about. They're not really thinking about, which founders are maybe doing cool stuff. I don't know I don't know what they look like, the shape of them. I think it's going to be acquisition city. And if they really want to rock and roll, they would leave the brands as they are for as long as possible. And the main reason is pricing power. Someone like Cyft is going to be able to charge a heck of a lot more for the exact same product than if you put ConnectWise on it or you put Kaseya on it, because we don't have all of this historical precedent of, it costs $40 or $50. I would never pay more than that for this thing. So if I'm looking at it, I'm like, who can I acquire? Who has a good brand that I can just put money behind and put effort and fuel behind, keep the brand, introduce them to my biggest customers. I'd almost do an acquisition like not even publicly, and I would just bolster that startup so that they can reset the pricing power for AI for all my customers before I like really announced it. So I know that's a little bit like pie in the sky, but like I don't think that they can. I don't know. I think they're going to have to do acquisition.
And I'll just quickly say, I won't call out the specific name because I can't remember if I was on or off the record, but there is at least one really big company out there that is very quietly making acquisitions, and not like vendor acquisitions necessarily, but they're doing some of this acqui-hiring that you're talking about, James, where they encounter some people with really interesting skills and bring them on board.
That's who I think's going to win. Like that is the formula. Is you get weird, awesome, like hardworking people that are just obsessed, and like put them in a sandbox, and anything cool that comes out of that, like utilize that. Looking for novel approaches to these things. It's blue ocean. Like there actually is unique things that are coming out that create competitive advantages. Look at Mythos, right? When Mythos came out, that wasn't because we plugged in 16 more data centers and just charged more power into it. Or it was a different technique that led to an emergent outcome. That's a small team, probably led by one person, that is able to completely transform the landscape of how we think about it. That still exists right now all over the place, on the application layer, on the model layer, on the data layer, on the memory layer, on how we think about skills, context loading, caching. Like there's so much for really brilliant people to sink their teeth into and create competitive advantages for products. It's not just the foundational models, it's the harness around it that is really the opportunity, in my opinion.
I was having a beer the other night with a good friend of mine, James, who's like so AI forward. His organization, like it's amazing. And he was telling me about this next level of communication and I didn't understand it, but it came off to me like this is like command line interface between these LLMs and things like that. Um, what and he said it would reduce cost,
Mhm.
token burn and things like because a more direct way, let the machines talk to the machines the way they
Mhm.
talk. Um, do you have any thoughts about that?
I was just thinking about it. I was just thinking about it. It's like MCPs are probably going away, but it's tough because the market is just now starting to understand MCPs. So
Mhm.
founders like myself and my co-founder Mark, like we're talking about these things every day. Or like, should we even build the MCP harness when we know CLI is actually the right move? Skate
Mhm.
where the puck is going. But then it's like, well, of course we got to explain MCPs and why they're inefficient. They send all these tools through instead of just letting the machines talk to each other. It was really cool before, but now things are moving so fast. CLI is the future. It's really actually difficult to like decide what to do and how fast to move. But yeah, totally. Like internally, we know MCPs are like going to be out the door from a technology standpoint, but they're just now hitting adoption. So it's kind of like weird.
That's how fast things are moving. You're predicting things maybe 4 to 7 years out. I was thinking, man, that's a long time to wait in AI time. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
What are your thoughts on, we know that there are a lot of um there's a lot of investment coming in to the market, building out kind of AI led MSPs, call them, AI frontier firms and things like that.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts around, that type of focus and the potential gap between those folks that are really like leaning hard into AI to build out these MSP practices and investing in them and things like that, and the folks that are just kind of, not yet thinking about that. What what are your thoughts around the valuation, the interest that these AI led organizations are creating in the channel, and what does that mean for the rest of the market?
I think we're going to see mass consolidation. I think it's going to accelerate. Which I don't think is necessary. I mean, we kind of talk about like a bad thing, but I'm like, a lot of the guys I talk to are like, I'm 5 to 7 years out. I just like, I'm going to be selling. And so I'm like, I don't know. I see on LinkedIn and everyone's like, it's this the whole thing, stop the consolidate. I think this is half of what people want is like accelerate that timeline. Now, what's your multiple when you get there? Like that's the thing that I have conversations around. Is like, okay, you're 4 years out and the macro market is accelerating that timeline probably in a lot of ways. Like what's going to be your multiple? Are you going to have really crappy data that you can't prove and you have no workflows documented and all this sort of thing and you know, kind of get to the due diligence table and they're going to axe your price a little bit once they dig into things? Or are you going to have really clean data, awesome workflows documented, not a lot of key man risk around your customer service, like all those sorts of things, and have a much higher multiple. And I think that's probably what the conversation should be around when it comes to the consolidation piece. Now, what does the AI first MSP do for the market? It's hard to say because you can slap AI on anything. I don't know if the guys there and gals there are that smart. If they are brilliant, then like, holy crap, they're gonna have a massive opportunity. If they're not, like, then they're just gonna spend a bunch of money building things that they could have just bought for like, 1/100th of the price, and that every other MSP is just gonna end up buying anyways. So it really right now is like the people. If you have smart people that are like pushing the limits and actually understand how to productize things and add value, that is the competitive advantage. So when I see someone like raise a bunch of money and they have AI on it, it's like it's hard to know. It's really hard to know because it's not that difficult to raise money, and until people are putting out products, like we don't know. It's so blue ocean. We're so early on that piece that yeah, it's hard to say. I think it'll separate over the next few years, and we'll start to see a divergence of people that planned to build all this AI internally and didn't have the chops, didn't hire the right people, didn't spend the egregious money on salaries for those people to get that competitive advantage. Like, those people don't work for other people for the most part. Like, the people that you actually want, they probably don't work for someone else. They're probably working on their own. That's why I was talking about acquihire. It's like, these guys aren't just like, W-2 employees, right? For the most part, they're either doing it themselves or they have a company, or, they're contractors, whatever. But that was a long-winded answer to your question. But I got a lot of, I think about this a lot. And like, what does that mean? It's like, it actually doesn't mean anything if we don't know who the people are. That's the short version.
Well, the fact that you're thinking about this stuff a lot is why we wanted you on the show. This has been really great stuff. Last question for you. So if you are an MSP in our audience here who does want to be AI forward and kind of lean into what AI powered automation can do from them, these are great times and very difficult times because there are a lot of options out there. Like you were saying, a smart thing people can do right now is just create a lab and start testing these things. Give folks in the audience a little advice, any thoughts you can share in terms of how to run that eval process, meaning like what am I looking for, how am I comparing these tools, how do I even approach making a decision on where I want to invest?
It's a really great question. Where do you start? I mean, I've spent months telling people that Cyft is the place that you start. Start with the data. Clean your data up, something that's easy to use, improve your time entries, improve the workflows that you kind of have right now, and get better clean data in there. I do think that's a great place to start. So I'll throw out Lexful too. Lexful's doing great with documentation. So I'll be looking at companies like Cyft, like Lexful, that are like not super intrusive into the things that you're already doing now, that are just helping the things you're doing now. Documentation is an awesome place to start. And if there's another company that pops up that does exactly what Cyft does, I'm going to promote them too, because it is not just about Cyft or about Lexful or anyone. It's just the whole ecosystem needs to be working together to help MSPs start to adopt this technology. I would start with documentation and getting good, clean signal into your system of record, because everything else is built on top of that. Every workflow that you run, every analysis that you do, any sort of way that you're looking at your data, if it's broken on the input, like every downstream product that you buy is broken. So fix the input, fix the capture layer. Right now, I believe that's Cyft. Lexful does a good job with that too. And so that's where I would start.
All right. Well, James, we are so appreciative that you were able to carve out some time and join us here on the show. Very interesting conversation. Lots more that we could theoretically get into with you. For now, for the folks in our audience here who want to get in touch with you, learn more about Cyft, where should they go?
Yeah, Cyft.ai, great place to start. That's CYFT.ai. And then you can find me on LinkedIn, James Farrow, Farrow. I'm always happy to chat, take calls like this. I think about this all day long. So I am here. Use me as a resource. For most people, I have really nothing to sell you unless you're like on ConnectWise and you're looking for AI and you need unless you're like very, very specifically in our niche. I have nothing to sell you, and I will tell you everything that I know, everything that I'm learning, and I am just here to help and be a conduit of the experience and wisdom that we're gaining by building.
All right. I love it. Thank you, James, for joining us on the show. Folks, Eric and I are going to take a quick break now. When we come back on the other side, we're going to share some final thoughts about this interesting conversation with James, have a little fun, wrap up the show. Stick around. We're going to be right back. And welcome back to part 3 of this episode of the MSP Chat Podcast. One last thank you to James Farrow for taking a little bit of time out to share his thoughts with us. I've had multiple conversations over the course of the last year at this point to speak with him. And I was very glad to have him on the show because he always has sort of an AI pioneer's perspective on what's going on with that technology and managed services right now. Very thoughtful outlook. And so it was great to get his point of view here on the show with us. I think, and it's interesting that as an AI insider, which he is, I think it was interesting and should be encouraging in the context of everything we were talking about earlier in the show. That, as he put it, we're in the early innings of the AI story in managed services, and so nobody is too late at this point, or even on the verge of being. Now, I mean, things are moving very fast, and we've kind of talked about how you don't have forever to get moving and figure some of this stuff out. But that said, we're early in the story. You are not hopelessly behind if you feel like you're still just getting things underway. This is a perfect time, actually, to be getting things underway. It was interesting. There was a point in the conversation there where he was kind of, we were talking earlier about Enable's point of view on getting the AI through the same pane of glass that you're getting a lot of your other managed services from, has certain benefits for an MSP, certain efficiencies. And obviously, ConnectWise and Kaseya and companies like those will share that perspective. And James, I won't say he shared that perspective either, but he didn't dismiss it at all. Like, he didn't give you the point of view basically that said those guys will never understand AI as well as. I mean, he was kind of talking about how companies like his, one of the things they're going to have to consider is looking for an acquisition partner. I mean, it's going to be hard. It'll be a competitive challenge, I think, going forward for companies like Cyft, and James knows that right now. I'm sure his peers at a lot of these startups know that as well. So that was sort of one of many, many interesting things that we got from James.
Yeah, and the way you position it, Rich, having the perspective of an AI pioneer is very, very different. Like, the conversation is different, the viewpoints are different than, other folks that are out there kind of just have been in the industry for a long time and are kind of trying to add AI into their existing solutions or platforms and things like that. When you're building it from the ground up with a very specific purpose and seeing I think you see the potential and the obstacles a little bit differently. Well, I would say that folks that are trying to integrate it into their existing ecosystem don't see the obstacles, but I think the pioneers are solving for different types of obstacles and thinking much, much further beyond managing an SMB's AI usage, right? The data is the key, right? And what can be done with that data. So it's interesting to have someone like James come in and give us his insights, and it really got me thinking in a different way about a lot of things in front of us here in the next 3 to 5 years. And I also think that it's not going to take 5 years for a lot of this stuff it's just happening so fast. It's hard to stay on top of all the changes and all the new entrants into the industry and the new solutions. And some of the folks that are being acquired, um, you know, didn't build their solution for the IT industry, right? So that's also interesting as we're seeing these strategic decisions that the acquirers are making. So very interesting conversation.
And you remind me, you talk about how quickly things are moving in this industry, and just one quick little example is just within the last few hours, as we're recording this, access to Fable 5, the top of the line model from Anthropic, has been restored, and our interview guest on next week's show is the Chief Information Security Officer from Barracuda, and our discussion topic is going to be these leading edge models, Mythos and Fable. That's an interview that I booked within the last few days before I knew that it was going to be exactly as relevant as it turns out to be. And it's just one good example of how quickly things are moving out there, and why it's so important to be talking about this stuff with your customers right now. But for now, Eric, we have time for just one last thing, and it comes to us, of course, from the world of AI, and specifically from Arizona, where the police were called to investigate a potential shooting incident, I believe, in Chandler, Arizona. And they called out the SWAT team. SWAT team was doing that very dangerous work when they were, to their surprise, joined by a robotic assistant who was not technically part of the SWAT team. This robotic assistant is named Dot. Dot works for DoorDash. And apparently, somebody, maybe it was a member of the SWAT team, maybe it was somebody inside the home there, but somebody was in the mood for pizza, and Dot came by to deliver. Fortunately, Dot was not hurt. Dot did not result in anyone else getting hurt here. Apparently, DoorDash had to send a van out to this house. And I guess there's video online that I haven't seen of somebody from DoorDash with a controller in his hands, kind of telling Dot, okay, come on back home here. This is not a good place for you to be making a delivery. But you got to applaud Dot's persistence. If it's me and I'm a pizza delivery guy and I see a bunch of people, in tactical gear with long weapons pointing them at a house, I'm probably just going to back off. But Dot was going to get this done.
Oh my goodness. I just had a flashback, Rich, of like all of these hostage movies we've seen where they say, okay, send pizza in and, the delivery guy's in there, but he's actually the double agent that's going to, help free the hostages. I don't think Dot's got those kinds of skills.
Well, folks, that is all the time we've got for you this week on the show. We thank you very much for joining us. We're going to be back in a week's time with another episode for you. I'll just remind you until then that this is both a video and an audio podcast, which means that if you're listening to us right now, but you'd like to check us out on video, you can go to YouTube, look up MSP Chat there. If you are watching us on YouTube, but you're into audio podcasts, go to Spotify, Google, Apple, wherever you get them, and you're going to find us there too. And wherever you find us, please subscribe, rate, review. It's going to help other people find and enjoy the show just like you do. The show is produced by the great Riley Simpson, who I attended a baseball game with earlier in the week. He's just part of the team with us here at Channel Mastered, where we work with MSPs looking to build, with vendors looking to build thriving MSP channels. You can learn all about the many ways we do that at our website, which is www.channelmastered.com. Channel Mastered has a sister organization called MSP Mastered. That's Eric and his team working one-on-one with MSPs to help them grow and optimize their business. You can learn more about that at www.mspmastered.com. So once again, we thank you for joining us. We'll see you in a week. Until then, please remember, as we always urge you to, you can't spell channel without MSP.